Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. President Lee Jae-myung is set to host the leaders of South Korea's two main political parties this afternoon for lunch at the Blue House. Talks are expected to cover bipartisan cooperation aimed at ensuring stable governance, as well as the president's recent call to speed up legislation. The U.S. labor market saw an unexpected boost in January, adding about 130,000 jobs last month, according to its latest jobs report. But an annual update showed that hiring last year was even weaker than initially reported. South Korean teenage snowboarders Choi Ga-eun and Lee Chae-eun are eyeing medals after both securing spots in the halfpipe finals at the Milano Cortina Olympics. We begin this morning with President Lee Jae-myung hosting the leaders of South Korea's two main political parties for lunch at the Blue House today. Presidential Chief of Staff Kang Won-sik said Wednesday that the president will meet Democratic Party Chairman Chung Cheong-rae and the People Power Party's Chang Dong-hyuk to discuss bipartisan cooperation aimed at improving people's livelihoods and ensuring stable governance. With no fixed agenda, talks are expected to cover a wide range of issues, including the president's recent call to speed up legislation. The luncheon marks the second of its kind, following the first last September. The National Assembly has wrapped up the last session of questioning government officials. Heated debate continued between the rival parties on social issues. Our political correspondent An Sung-jin tells us more.
3 intense days of government questioning sessions ended on Wednesday. On Monday, lawmakers focused on politics, diplomacy, unification, and national security, which was followed by a session on the economy on Tuesday. Wednesday's session centered on culture, society, and education with Prime Minister Kim Min-seok and government officials including the Education Minister, Justice Minister, and Culture Minister present. The ruling Democratic Party used the last round of government questioning to underscore the need for regional administration integration, which is currently being pushed under the Lee Jae-myung administration, and asked the plausibility of the plan before the June 3rd local elections.
Unless the relevant legislation passes the National Assembly by the end of February, the merger of metropolitan governments would be virtually impossible to be completed.
I urge the PPP lawmakers to take an active part by cooperating for balanced national development rather than for partisan interests or political advantage.
Meanwhile, the main opposition People Power Party questioned the current administration's real estate policy, asking whether reconstruction or redevelopment have become taboo words as it criticizes the current housing supply measures. Lawmakers also pressed the government over rising house prices and a weak Korean won.
I believe the economy's fundamentals remain the same, though I'd like to understand why the exchange rate against the dollar has gone up by more than 100 Korean won after the new administration.
It cannot be seen as a problem of fundamentals, nor an issue from foreign exchange reserves or external debt. Though views differ on an appropriate exchange rate, we are doing our utmost to ensure it does not exceed a reasonable level.
The 3-day government questioning session wrapped up with rival parties clashing over a wide range of issues. With a little over 2 weeks left till the end of February's extraordinary session, the National Assembly will now work on the passage of both contentious and non-contentious bills through plenary sessions. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And the National Assembly has also officially launched a special committee to review the so-called Special Act on Investment in the United States, moving into full-scale deliberations on the bill. The committee is holding its first plenary meeting on Thursday with briefings from relevant government ministries. Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chul and Trade Minister Kim Jong-kwan are expected to attend. Lawmakers aim to pass the bill before March 9th, the committee's deadline. The ruling and opposition parties agreed to form the committee earlier this month after U.S. President Donald Trump warned he could raise tariffs on South Korea, citing delays in Korean legislation. The bill was first proposed in November last year, following a deal tied to a bilateral tariff agreement between Seoul and Washington. Meanwhile, the U.S. labor market shows stronger than expected hiring in January, but deeper weaknesses under the surface are causing concerns. Our Oh Soo-young has more.
US job growth unexpectedly picked up in January, easing immediate concerns of a sharp labour market slowdown, but experts warn of a long-term fragility. On Wednesday, the US Bureau of Labour Statistics reported that employers added 130,000 jobs in January, far above market expectations, with major gains in healthcare. The unemployment rate ticked down 0.1 percentage points to 4.3%, while wage growth held up, with average hourly earnings rising about 0.4% in January. Yet the broader picture on jobs is less rosy. Annual benchmark revisions show that total job growth last year was dramatically slower than previously estimated, slashed from around 584,000 jobs to just 181,000. This means average monthly job growth was roughly 15,000 jobs, with employment gains concentrated heavily in healthcare and with minor gains in the retail and utility sectors. Meanwhile, job losses were recorded in financial services, transportation, mining and logging industries. Economists warn that the headline gains could be masking deeper weaknesses in the labour market, as broader losses in pay and income point to uneven growth.
Both of those metrics showed a spike in the second half of January. For the lost pay and income one, we'd actually seen this upward trend begin in late 2025. But what changed in 2026 is that it spread from more just the lower income group who were more isolated and kind of experiencing tougher economic conditions. It spread to hit the high income group. And that's kind of ringing alarm bells for me because of what we've seen with the K-shaped economy and because of how important that group has been for driving overall economic growth.
With hiring slowing and unemployment stable, many analysts believe the US job market is entering a period of stagnation. Experts say the January report is likely to influence Federal Reserve expectations, likely adding to policymakers' reluctance to cut interest rates soon, as they continue to monitor inflation. 오수영, Arirang News.
So hiring in the U.S. started the year at a stronger pace. For a closer look at the broader impact of the first jobs report of the year, we're joined today by Greg Bushak, Professor of Finance at Stanford Graduate School of Business at Stanford University. Professor Bushak, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So what does this latest report tell us about the current state of the U.S. economy and the labor market?
Sure. So as you said in the report, the U.S. economy added about 330,000 jobs, and the headline unemployment rate fell slightly to 4.3%. So just viewed in isolation, these are good numbers, but there are a lot of caveats. So the first big one is that there were major downward revisions in the 2025 numbers. So total job creation was about 400,000 jobs fewer than previously estimated. Now, these jobs data, they're always preliminary, so there's likely to be some revisions. Today's revision was kind of unusually large and basically meant there was very little aggregate job creation in 2025. Now, there is net job creation now, but this job market has been characterized as being what people are calling kind of a low fire, low hire market, meaning there's just very little turnover. And especially people who do lose their jobs, they tend to struggle for a while to find a new one. And then the other big caveat is a lot of the job creation was in the healthcare sector. So if you take away that sector, other industries actually lost jobs. The fact that job creation is so concentrated in this service sector is kind of a concern. So headline numbers are good with some caveats that point to some structural weaknesses in the economy.
I see. And the Fed said last month that it's in no rush to cut rates despite, pressure from Trump. And they cited a stabilizing job market. What might be the Fed's next move? What's your outlook for interest rates for the rest of the year?
Sure. So if you just taking a step back, the Fed has this dual mandate of low unemployment and low inflation. So lowering rates tends to spur investment, and this leads to more employment, but it also potentially causes inflation. So therefore, when the Fed is kind of making these rate decisions, they're thinking about trading off these two concerns. So before today's jobs report, I would summarize the current situation in the U.S. as inflation being sort of stubbornly higher than the Fed would like, but also a labor market that's a little bit weaker than the Fed would like. Now, in light of this trade-off that I mentioned, the Fed has been sort of right on the edge of wanting to lower rates versus keep them steady. The jobs report that came out today it's positive enough, I think, that it gives the Fed room to hold off on cutting rates a little bit longer. So I just don't see them moving for a bit. I think that the folks at the Fed are really waiting for more decisive labor market data, and today's report just wasn't that decisive.
I see. And today's jobs report comes, as the U.S. stock market has been undergoing major shifts recently. How have markets responded so far?
Yeah, so markets today were pretty much exactly flat in response to the news. They didn't go up, they didn't go down. The headline from the jobs report was good news, so you might kind of wonder why stocks didn't go up a bit more. So a few things, as we've been discussing, this is a good headline number, but beyond that, these caveats make it not such a rosy picture. That is the revisions, the healthcare concentration, and so on. And then second, what actually drives a lot of pricing in markets is beliefs about future rates. So in particular, lower rates tend to push stock prices up. And all things considered, this jobs report sort of makes the near-term rate cut less likely, and that expectation weighs down on stock prices, which can kind of offset the relatively good labor market news.
Right, and investors have been cautious ahead of this jobs report and other key economic data to be released. And this week, Bitcoin fell to its lowest level since Trump took office. Why is this, and what should investors be watching for?
Yeah, so I'll say a few things about crypto in general and Bitcoin in particular. So, crypto is an asset. It doesn't pay dividends or generate cash flows. So if it has fundamental value at all, it sort of has to come from its usefulness. There is some recent innovation around things like stable coins, which are crypto assets pegged to normal currencies, together with some regulatory innovation like the Genius Act that just passed in the US. This is intended to make these assets a little bit more useful in doing transactions, and that's kind of an interesting developing area. Now, Bitcoin is outside of that. It's a little bit different. So like these stable coins, it produces no cash flows, but it also has a very limited transactional use. It's slow, it's energy intensive relative to established currencies. Really, its main comparative advantage is mostly around facilitating like illegal or otherwise restricted transactions that the ordinary payment system won't touch. It's also very volatile, so it makes it a poor store of value. So the question is, why is it valuable at all? Well, if speculators are willing to buy it at high prices, the price can be kind of self-sustaining. But that equilibrium where people are willing to pay a lot is unstable and very fragile. It can unravel easily. And a lot of market microstructure events can have a big impact. So for example, there are some reports around this big decline in price that suggested there was a single large seller that put pressure down on prices. Now, if you're a participant in this market, you see that and you're kind of wondering whether that's a one-off or if the whole sort of equilibrium that's keeping prices up is dissolving, and they may sell in response. And that's kind of has this cascading effect. And I think that's a little bit of what was going on here rather than something that was linked more to Bitcoin's fundamentals or fundamentals in the economy. So, all in all, these large swings are expected because there's just not a lot of fundamental value there. I wouldn't really tie the move to something deeper, aside perhaps the rise of these competitor stablecoins.
I see. All right, Professor Pushak, thank you so much for your time and insight today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Russia says it'll block any new UN sanctions on North Korea. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told lawmakers on Wednesday that Moscow will ensure no additional sanctions resolutions passed the UN Security Council. He said Russia and China, both permanent council members, would work together to stop further penalties on Pyongyang. At the same time, Lavrov called it unrealistic to expect a resolution that will lift existing sanctions. Lavrov also questioned calls for North Korea's denuclearization, saying such discussions are inappropriate while the United States, South Korea, and Japan expand military cooperation, including nuclear-related activities. He argued that demanding denuclearization under these conditions would be unfair to North Korea. And over in Canada, police say an 18-year-old trans woman carried out a deadly school shooting in British Columbia on Tuesday, killing 9 people. Authorities say the suspect had a history of mental health issues as the country mourns one of the worst school tragedies in its history. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Canadian authorities are revealing new details about one of the deadliest school shootings in the country's history. Police say the attacker in Tuesday's massacre in Tumbler Ridge, a remote community in British Columbia, was an 18-year-old transgender woman with a history of mental health struggles. However, investigators have not identified a clear motive, adding that the suspect, Jesse Van Rooselaar, died by suicide after the attack. Officials also revised the death toll to 9, down from the initially reported 10. According to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police on Wednesday, officers had responded to the suspect's family home multiple times over the years over mental health-related concerns.
Police had attended that residence on multiple occasions over the past several years, dealing with concerns of mental health with respect to our suspect. I can say that on different occasions, a suspect was apprehended for assessment and follow-up.
Authorities believe Van Rooselaar began the deadly shooting spree at home, where the bodies of the suspect's 39-year-old mother and 11-year-old stepbrother were found. Police say the shooter then went to a local school and opened fire. A 39-year-old female teacher was killed, along with 5 students, 3 12-year-old girls, and 2 boys aged 12 and 13. The small community has been left in shock as families mourn and officials provide counseling and support services. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung offered condolences to the victims' families and to the Canadian people, saying he hopes the nation can heal and return to daily life. He also expressed support for Canada's leadership as the country grieves. Authorities say the investigation is continuing as they work to piece together the timeline and circumstances behind the attack. Meanwhile, Tumbler Ridge is holding vigils to honor the victims and support those affected by the tragedy. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Ahead of the Lunar New Year holiday, the southwestern city of Gwangju hosted a meeting with ethnic Koreans from Central Asia, also known as Koryoin, and highlighted that returning overseas Koreans should be recognized as members of the Korean nation who share historical roots and identity. Our Cho Young-eun reports.
To mark Seollal, the Korean Lunar New Year, the Koryoin village in Gwangju came alive with celebration and warmth. Children gathered to receive food packages, which included items like rice and agricultural products. Now home to more than 4,000 ethnic Koreans from Central Asia and descendants of Korean independence activists from the former Soviet Union, the village has also welcomed ethnic Korean refugees who fled Ukraine following Russia's invasion in 2022. Following an earlier meeting in Incheon, the Overseas Koreans Agency met with community members in Gwangju Koryoin village on Wednesday to hear about their experiences and connect them to policy improvements. Key issues raised included residency status, housing and living costs, children's education and language adaptation, and access to stable jobs. Officials emphasized that returning overseas Koreans should not be seen as foreign laborers or outsiders, but as members of one Korean nation who share historical roots and identity.
The answers are in the field. Through today's site visit and dialogue with the community, we are closely identifying the difficulties they face in their daily lives and reflecting those voices in our policymaking process.
Through on-site engagement, the government reaffirmed its pledge to provide institutional support and equal opportunities based on non-discriminatory inclusion. During the event, officials also met with residents in key community facilities, including the Comprehensive Support Center and the Tamoa Children's Park. They connected with the community through cultural exchanges, trying on traditional costumes and visiting the Koryoin Culture Center. These efforts are expected to help build a more inclusive society, enabling returning overseas Koreans to build their lives with stability in Korea. Cho Young-eun, Arirang News, Gwangju.
Hello, and welcome. I am your AI sports correspondent, Arirang. This section features AI-generated content and scripts, bringing you the latest news from the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026. Here are our top stories. South Korean teenagers Taega On and Lee Tae-woon both secured spots in the snowboard half-pipe finals on Wednesday at Living No Snow Park. In the women's event, 17-year-old Chegaon scored 82.25 points in her first run to finish 6th among 24 boarders. She remains a podium contender, alongside American Chloe Kim, who led the field with 90.25 points. In the men's qualification, 19-year-old Lee Tae-un scored 82.00 points to finish 9th, securing his place in Friday's 12-man final. Both athletes will have 3 runs in their respective finals to determine the medal standings. South Korea's Gu Kyung-min finished 10th in the men's 1,000-meter speed skating final on Wednesday at the Milano Speed Skating Stadium. The 21-year-old Olympic debutant finished the race in 1 minute, 8.53 seconds, finishing 2.25 seconds behind the winner. American Jordan Stolz won the gold medal with a new Olympic record of 1 minute, 6.28 seconds. Gu stated after the race that he executed his plan well despite the high stakes. He now shifts his focus to the 500-meter sprint on Saturday. Swiss alpine skier Franjo van Almen won the men's Super G on Wednesday, claiming his 3rd gold medal of the Games. The 24-year-old beat American Ryan Cochran-Siegel by 0.13 seconds. This victory makes van Almen the first male alpine skier since 1968 to win 3 gold medals in a single Winter Olympics. He joins legends Jean-Claude Killy and Tony Saylor as the only men to achieve this feat. Van Almen decided not to compete in the giant slalom, ending his Olympic campaign with 3 titles. Norwegian biathlete Sturla Holmøy apologized on Wednesday for overshadowing teammate Johan Olav Bone's gold medal victory with a live television confession regarding his personal life. The apology follows a Tuesday broadcast where Grade, after winning bronze, revealed on camera that he had been unfaithful to his partner. Grade stated on Wednesday that Bond deserved the full attention of the media and admitted he was not thinking clearly when he shared the story. Meanwhile, Grade's ex-girlfriend told local media that the public declaration was painful and difficult to endure. Before we head out, let's look ahead. Appearing now on your screen are the current medal standings and the upcoming schedule for the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026.
As temperatures rise, the fine dust level has risen as well. Ultra-fine dust advisories are in place for the capital area and Chungcheongnam-do province, so make sure to keep a face mask handy. Skies will be mostly clear nationwide, but the eastern regions remain very dry. Extra care is needed to prevent wildfires. Well, it was a colder start than yesterday, but highs will rise 1 to 4 degrees Celsius higher than yesterday. Seoul will be getting up to 9 degrees Celsius. Daegu, Jeju both topping out at 12 degrees. Rain or snow is expected on Jeju this weekend and in the east of Gwangju province next Monday. That no severe cold is forecast during the Lunar New Year holiday.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.